My dear friends, in this fast moving world, everyone is running, chasing, competing, and shouting to be heard. But let me ask you a question today. What if the greatest strength in life is not in speaking, not in fighting, not in proving, but in silence? Silence is not weakness. Silence is the highest language of God. In silence, you can hear the whispers of your own soul. You can hear the guidance of the divine, and you can discover answers that no noise can ever give you. People think, if I stay silent, I will lose everything. But the truth is, when you learn the art of silence, you gain everything that truly matters in life: peace, wisdom, and unshakable strength. Today, I want to share with you how being silent can transform your life, your relationships, your mind, and your soul. If you allow silence to be your companion, success and happiness will follow you naturally. Let us explore how silence is not emptiness. It is fullness, it is power, it is God's greatest gift. Silence connects you with God in ways words never can. Think about it. Our lives are filled with constant noise. From the moment we wake up, alarms ring, phones buzz, messages pour in, and the world demands our attention. We hardly get a single moment of stillness. In the rush to respond, explain, prove, and express, we lose the ability to listen to ourselves, to others, and most importantly, to God. Silence is not just the absence of sound, it is the presence of awareness. It is in those sacred pauses that the heart opens and the soul becomes receptive. Words may sometimes fail, prayers may feel empty, but silence is where God answers in His own language, the language of peace, clarity, and strength. When you are silent, you begin to notice things you usually miss. For example, after a long and tiring day, if you sit quietly without touching your phone, without switching on the television, without trying to fill the emptiness with distractions, you will feel something remarkable. At first, your mind may run in circles, thinking about unfinished tasks, about what someone said, about tomorrow's responsibilities. But if you simply remain still, those waves of thought begin to settle. Slowly, you sense a calmness rising inside you, and in that calmness, you begin to feel guided. It is like sitting by a lake. If the water is disturbed, you cannot see your reflection. But when the water becomes still, you see yourself clearly. Silence does exactly that. It reflects your true self and shows you the presence of God within. Many times in life, when we pray, we are speaking, asking, pleading, or even complaining. But how often do we stop and listen? Imagine if you are constantly talking to a friend and never give them a chance to respond. How will you ever hear what they want to say? The same applies to our relationship with God. We keep talking, but we rarely pause to hear His response. That response is not always a voice or a sign in the sky. It is the quiet nudge in your heart, the sudden clarity in your mind, the inner peace that tells you, you are not alone. All of this comes in silence. There is a story of a man who once asked a wise sage, "Why don't I ever feel God's presence in my life?" The sage smiled and said, "Because your life is too loud. You must sit in silence to hear Him." The man followed the advice and began spending just 10 minutes in silence every morning. At first it felt difficult. His mind was restless and he felt no connection. But gradually, those moments of silence became his most cherished time of the day. He realized that silence was not empty. It was full of God's love, strength, and direction. In daily life, we often rush to react. Someone criticizes us, and we immediately defend. Someone insults us, and we shout back. Someone praises us, and we quickly become proud. But silence teaches us a different way. It teaches us to pause before responding, to hear not just the words but the emotions behind them, and to allow God to guide our reply. Sometimes, silence itself is the answer. When we remain calm in front of anger, our silence becomes more powerful than 1,000 words. It shows strength, not weakness. It shows that we are not controlled by the outside world, but anchored in an inner connection with the divine. Even nature teaches us this truth. The most beautiful things in creation happen in silence. Seeds grow underground silently. Flowers bloom without noise. The sun rises each day without making a sound. Rivers flow, stars shine, the moon glows, all in silence. If God's greatest works are done quietly, what does that teach us? That silence is not emptiness, it is creation, it is power. It is the space where miracles take birth. When you begin to practice silence, you will notice a shift in your life. Stress will reduce because silence calms the racing mind. Your intuition will sharpen because silence allows you to hear your inner wisdom. Relationships will improve because silence makes you more patient and understanding. And most of all, your connection with God will deepen. You will no longer feel that you are wandering alone in this noisy world. You will realize that even in your quietest moments, you are held, guided, and loved by the divine. So, whenever life feels overwhelming, whenever confusion clouds your mind, whenever pain feels unbearable, do not always search for solutions outside. Instead, sit in silence. Close your eyes, breathe, let the world fade for a while, and let God's presence rise within you. Silence is not the absence of life, it is the fullness of life. It is where you discover who you truly are, and it is where you realize that God has always been with you, waiting patiently for you to listen. Silence brings inner peace, and this peace is something every human being is searching for in one form or another. People chase wealth, recognition, relationships, and material possessions, believing that these things will give them peace. But have you noticed, even after achieving so much, many people are still restless. They lie awake at night, unable to quiet their minds. They succeed on the outside, but feel broken on the inside. True peace is not found in noise, in arguments, or in endless explanations. It is found in silence. Silence is like a cool breeze on a hot summer day. It doesn't need to announce its arrival. It simply comes and soothes the burning heart. When you practice silence, you give your mind the gift of rest. Most of our stress comes not from situations themselves, but from the way our mind constantly reacts to them. Imagine someone criticizes you. Before their words even end, your mind starts shouting inside, "How dare they say this to me? I must respond." That inner storm robs you of peace. But if you choose silence, you allow the storm to pass. You breathe, you pause. You let the words go without immediately fighting back. In that pause, you protect your inner peace. It doesn't mean you accept injustice or become weak. It means you value your peace more than temporary arguments. Think of a cup filled with muddy water. If you keep shaking it, the mud spreads everywhere, making the water cloudy. But if you leave it still, the mud settles at the bottom and the water becomes clear. Our mind works the same way. Silence is the stillness that allows the mud of anger, fear, and worry to settle down. Then clarity rises, and with clarity comes peace. One of the simplest daily examples is when we get stuck in traffic. Many people start honking, shouting, or getting angry. But does the noise change the situation? Not at all. In fact, it only makes the journey more stressful. But if you choose silence in that moment, maybe turn inward, maybe breathe deeply, maybe observe the sky, you preserve your peace. The situation is the same, but your experience of it becomes different. Silence is not about changing the world outside, it is about changing the way you experience it. Another example is in relationships. Often, people argue endlessly to prove they are right. But even if you win the argument, you may lose peace. What if, instead of immediately reacting, you allow silence to be present? Sometimes, not responding in anger is the greatest gift you can give to yourself and to the other person. Silence gives space for emotions to cool down. Later, when both are calm, you can talk with clarity. That way, silence doesn't create distance, it creates harmony. Many families, many friendships, and many marriages would be stronger if people understood the power of silent pauses. Silence also protects us from unnecessary energy loss. Have you noticed how exhausted you feel after defending yourself in arguments or after over explaining something to someone who doesn't even want to understand? That exhaustion is not just physical, it is emotional. But when you learn to stay silent instead of explaining yourself to every single person, you save your inner energy. And in that energy, you discover peace. You no longer need to fight every battle. You simply choose which battles are worth your attention. This maturity comes from silence. There is also a deeper peace that silence brings, the peace of being in the present moment. Usually, our mind is either stuck in the past or worrying about the future. Silence pulls us back into the now. When you sit quietly under a tree, listening to the sound of the wind, or when you walk by yourself without any device in hand, you begin to notice life in its simplicity. The chirping of birds, the warmth of sunlight, the rhythm of your breath, these little things become sources of joy. And in that awareness, peace blossoms. Many great saints, sages, and wise people throughout history have taught the same lesson: silence is the doorway to peace. They spent hours in meditation, not because they wanted to escape the world, but because they wanted to return to the world with peace in their hearts. Their silence made them stronger, not weaker. When you practice silence, you too can carry that unshakable peace with you, no matter how chaotic the outside world becomes. So, the next time life feels heavy, don't rush to fill the emptiness with more noise. Don't run to distractions. Don't drown in overthinking. Instead, sit in silence, even if just for a few minutes. At first, it may feel uncomfortable because the mind will resist. But if you stay patient, silence will reveal its gift, the gift of inner peace. And once you taste that peace, you will realize that nothing in this world is more valuable. Wealth can be lost, positions can be taken away, people may come and go, but the peace you gain from silence stays within you like an unshakable treasure. Silence is not just quietness, it is the highest form of strength. It teaches you that real peace is not something you chase outside. It is already inside you, waiting to be discovered. All you need to do is be silent long enough to hear it. Silence is the root of wisdom, and wisdom is something every human soul longs for. Knowledge may come from books, from lectures, from schools, and from experiences, but wisdom is deeper. Wisdom is the ability to understand life beyond surface appearances, to see truth hidden beneath words, and to respond in ways that bring harmony instead of conflict. And this wisdom does not arise from constant noise, endless talking, or restless activity. It arises from silence. Silence is the fertile soil where seeds of understanding grow into trees of wisdom. When you are silent, you create the space to reflect. Most people rush through life, reacting to everything instantly. Someone asks a question, they answer immediately, whether right or wrong. Someone provokes them, they react without thinking. In such haste, mistakes are made and clarity is lost. But silence gives you a pause. In that pause, you begin to see the situation more clearly. You weigh your words, you measure your actions, And instead of reacting, you respond with wisdom. The difference between reacting and responding is the difference between confusion and clarity, between regret and wisdom. Think of a simple daily example. Imagine someone at your workplace criticizes you unfairly in front of others. The natural impulse is to respond quickly, maybe with anger or defense. But if you remain silent, even for a short while, something powerful happens. In those few moments of silence, you gather yourself. You realize that the criticism is not a reflection of your entire worth, but perhaps of their own frustration or misunderstanding. Later, when you do choose to speak, your words carry weight, calmness, and balance. People listen more deeply because they feel the depth behind your silence. This is wisdom in action. There is a famous saying, fools speak because they have to say something, but wise people speak because they have something to say. Silence ensures that when you do speak, your words are meaningful. People who constantly talk often dilute their own message, but people who choose silence wisely make every word like a drop of nectar. That is why in history, the greatest leaders, saints, and teachers were not the loudest, they were the most silent, and when they finally spoke, the world listened. Nature itself is the greatest example of this truth. A tree does not make noise while growing, but it silently transforms sunlight into fruits, shade, and life for countless beings. The ocean, though vast, keeps its depth in silence. The stars shine every night without announcing their presence. Silence and wisdom walk hand in hand in the universe. If God's greatest creations are silent, then perhaps He is teaching us that true power is quiet and true wisdom comes from stillness. In our relationships too, silence becomes the root of wisdom. Sometimes during an argument, wisdom is not in speaking more, but in pausing and listening. When you are silent, you can hear not just the words of another person, but the pain behind their words. A child may shout at their parent, but in silence, the parent may realize the child's anger is really a cry for attention. A spouse may complain endlessly, but in silence, the other partner may understand that the complaint hides a longing for love. This wisdom of understanding beyond words is only possible through silence. Without silence, we only hear noise. With silence, we hear the heart. Wisdom also means knowing the right time to act. Silence teaches patience. A farmer knows that after sowing the seeds, he must wait in silence for them to grow. If he digs them up every day to check progress, he destroys the crop. In the same way, silence teaches us that not every problem needs immediate interference, not every question needs instant answers, and not every decision should be rushed. Sometimes, silence itself is the wisest action. It allows time to reveal truth, and truth always arrives with clarity when we wait with patience. Another important aspect of wisdom through silence is self-control. Many times our words become weapons. In anger, we say things that cannot be taken back, and they wound others deeply. But silence saves us from this. In moments of rage, when you remain silent, you are not suppressing weakness. You are showing strength. You are proving that you are the master of your tongue, not its servant. And in that self-mastery, wisdom shines. People respect those who know when to speak and when to remain silent. On a deeper level, silence gives us wisdom about ourselves. Most of us live outwardly, constantly engaged with the world, rarely pausing to look within. But in silence, we meet our own mind. We begin to notice our fears, our desires, our strengths, and our weaknesses. This self-awareness is the beginning of wisdom. Without silence, we live blindly, controlled by impulses. With silence, we awaken, guided by inner understanding. So, whenever you feel confused, whenever you do not know what to say, Whenever you are about to react out of anger or fear, choose silence. Let silence be your teacher. Let it guide your words and actions. Remember that silence does not mean absence, it means presence, the presence of wisdom, the presence of understanding, and the presence of God's guidance. In the end, wisdom is not about knowing everything, it is about knowing what truly matters and acting accordingly. And silence is the path that leads you there. Those who learn to value silence become fountains of wisdom, and their very presence inspires others. Their calmness becomes their power, and their silence becomes their message. This is why silence is called the root of wisdom. It is the beginning of all true understanding, and from it flows the strength to live life with clarity, balance, and grace. Silence strengthens relationships in a way that constant words never can. In today's world, most conflicts between people are not because of lack of love, but because of too many unnecessary words. We speak without thinking, we react without pausing, and in the process, we hurt those who matter the most to us. But when silence is practiced with wisdom, it becomes a bridge that connects hearts rather than a wall that separates them. Silence is not avoidance. It is understanding. It is the gentle reminder that sometimes listening is more powerful than speaking, and patience can heal more than arguments ever could. Think about how many times we have said something in anger that we later regretted. Those words, once spoken, cannot be taken back. They leave scars in the hearts of others. A single harsh sentence can destroy years of trust. But silence, in moments of anger, protects both you and the relationship. When you remain silent instead of reacting instantly, you give yourself time to cool down and the other person space to reflect. Later, when emotions settle, conversations become meaningful and solutions appear naturally. In this way, silence saves relationships from unnecessary damage. A beautiful example can be found in family life. Imagine a parent and a teenager arguing. The child shouts, "You never understand me!" The natural response of the parent might be to raise their voice louder, to prove authority, to defend their point. But if the parent chooses silence in that heated moment, something different happens. The silence does not mean agreement, it means wisdom. It allows the storm to pass. Later, when both are calm, the parent can speak with love and clarity, and the child will be more willing to listen. This silence does not weaken the parent's role. It strengthens the bond by preventing words that could push the child further away. In friendships too, silence plays a vital role. A true friend is not always the one who gives endless advice or speaks the most. Sometimes the best friend is the one who can sit with you in silence and still make you feel understood. There are moments in life when we do not need words, we just need presence. Silence in companionship brings a sense of comfort that no speech can match. It is in those quiet moments of sitting together, walking together, or simply being there without pressure that real connections are built. Silence also teaches us the art of listening, which is the heart of every strong relationship. Most people listen only to reply, not to understand. But when you practice silence, you begin to listen deeply, not only to the words but to the emotions behind them. A partner may say, "You never have time for me," but in silence, you may realize the real message is not about time, but about longing for attention and love. A friend may complain about something small, but in silence, you may sense the deeper struggle they are going through. This kind of listening, born from silence,